or the ice skating rink.
Ah,
Good was.
no, we can talk about that after. I think we're going on.
Wait, dude, more than one person on this. Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. Call this meeting, the Topsham Board, excuse me, the Topsham Select Board to order. 6:30 p.m. Donnelly Russell Room, meeting room, April 4th, 2024. Would you all please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are in front of a packed house tonight. So let's start off with roll call. Patty, please, if you would.
Okay, Roland Tufts. Marie Brilliant.
Here.
Ann Callahan.
Here.
Ryan Holmes.
Here.
Matt Nixon.
Present, and I would add that Roland is excused.
Thank you very much. Everyone's here except Roland, and he's been excused. Thank you. And our new town manager is also at the head table.
That's correct, Mr. Mark Waltz. Great segue. Let's go to the town manager report.
Thank you to everyone who pitched into the storm last week. As usual, our police and fire departments worked hard to deal with any emergencies that came up, and the public works crew was busy both plowing snow and then getting limbs and things out of the road. So thanks to all of them. We hosted a warming shelter for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We also hosted 17 out-of-state workers that were helping the CMP effort to assist the power at our public safety building. This CMP was having trouble finding hotel rooms for their workers because of the fact that everyone was booked for the eclipse. We'd had Team Rubicon use the facility in the past. It worked good. So we provided cots, FEMA provided bedding, and 17 workers slept there. A couple other groups of people that work for the town you might not have thought of that pitched in for this was our living students set up the room and the cots for the CMP workers, the living students at the fire department. And then in addition, our custodian, Daniel Elliott, came in this weekend to monitor the warming shelter as well as clean the facilities both here and over there that were involved with the workers we're using to keep everything in good shape. On Monday, I was invited to attend a Mid-Coast Council of Governments meeting about the lower road, the talk of changing the rail to a trail, starting in Brunswick and going up towards Gardner. They expect the Department of Transportation to send the request to the legislature later in the year. The Jeremy Clucci mentioned that there's still talk that park may be available for ATV and equestrian access. I guess that what they're talking about is the parks they're thinking that have multiple tracks. That park could be used to potentially connect between different ATV trails or horse trails or something. They're expecting to have more input, to get more public input in the fall as they talk about the plans for what each town might be. So the abilities for people to suggest areas that they want to have multi-access. And maybe Vice Chair Nixon has more input with some of the committees he's been on, because I know he's been much more involved in this. But that's just an update on the meeting that I was at. In consultation with Chair Tufts, we tentatively going to use the meeting, the first one in May, for a workshop with CPIC. What they'd like to do is talk more about the process so far as the new zoning code, then the process that will be to come for the new zoning code. And then in addition to share some highlights of things that they think you'd be interested in, or you may hear from constituents about that you want to be briefed on. So that'll be the first meeting in May. If we have something that's urgent, then we might do a brief actual meeting before the workshop. But I expect probably the workshop will last about an hour and a half. So maybe we go 6:30 to 8 that night. And the last item we've got is, as we announced the last meeting, the Meadow Road culvert has been being rebuilt. The construction's going well. The new tubes are in, and they've started to do the backfilling. If all goes according to plan, it should be backfilled enough or backfilled up to grade so that tomorrow afternoon it will be open to traffic. And then it'll be paved next week because it's supposed to rain later this week. So happy to entertain any questions, but that's what I've got for announcements.
What was that date again?
The road,
I'm sorry, the workshop that CPIC wants.
your first May meeting, so May 2nd.
The MCOG thing.
Yep.
What was the attendance like? Was it just town officials or were there other people?
MCOG reached out, it had Bowden's planner, Bowden's town manager, Brunswick's economic development director, Brunswick Parks and Rec director. I was the only person from Topsham. There was, let's see. I think that was it. So it's Brunswick, Topsham, Bowden, and no one from Bowden. They talked about expanding the group to try to get Richmond and Gardner and then I was the committee that you're on is going to be involved in everyone in the future too and things.
Yeah, that'd be good, because I haven't heard anything about this.
I think-
it's kind of a surprise to me.
I think MDOT, I guess, was waiting for the fall, which is probably why you hadn't heard anything yet, because they're not pushing it forward in the legislature yet.
Gotcha.
But just MCOT wanted to start doing some planning, so when things do come to pass, the communities can try to work together.
To make sure that everyone can use the trail and not just one group of people. Very good. Someone must have been listening.
And I don't know, I mean, to be fair, I think they're thinking if there's just one set of tracks, it may be hard to accommodate multiple uses in the same area, but they're at least, they're open or listening to if there's multiple sets and try to find a way to accommodate both horses and ATVs as well as people and bikes and stuff.
Fair enough. I look forward to hearing more about that from DOT, hopefully here soon. That'd be great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. Why I almost called you Derek. Thank you, Mark. Welcome to the chair. All right. Board and committee reports and updates. Do we have any? No. Moving on to public comment. Any public comments?
And we have no attendees.
All right. Excellent. Moving on. Correspondence. Any correspondence?
Might want to mention the letter you got.
I
Yeah.
think that Ryan, Roland got a letter.
Yes, we did receive a letter today, from the chair of the school board, announcing his resignation, effective. For right now.
Or to the chair this week.
Excuse me, thank you, Mike. To the chair of the school board, from Mike Timberlake, who is a Topsham resident, which means we are going to go through all the fun and excitement of appointing yet another school board member here very soon. And I think Mark is going to be hashing out the timeline for us here shortly. Is that?
So, we're in the process of putting your agenda packet together for the next meeting. In there, we've got a copy of the letter as well as the state law and a proposed process. So you'll have that on your agenda for the 18th.
You guys are lucky. Gonna get this right off the bat. This is the craziest thing you'll ever deal with on this board. Good stuff.
Will be passed.
It will be actually. Moving on to adjustments to the agenda. Anything? All right, consent calendar, approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting of March 21st, 2024.
I have a correction, in 24-24, for the appropriate action to appoint the bike and pedestrian committee. The second was by Mr. Holmes, not Nixon, and we have to pay. She's going to correction. So if there's no others, I'd like. If there are no other corrections, I would make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Let's see, public hearing, we don't have any tonight. Unfinished, that was awesome timing.
That was.
Unfinished business, none. Old business, none. New business, 24-27, consideration and any appropriate action on setting the public hearing on April 18th, 2024 for the special town meeting warrant on May 22nd, 2024.
I have questions on that I'd like to ask. I'm understanding that this is just to set the date, but I'm looking at the, warrant for the special town meeting that was given to us tonight. And, I had questions about that, like, do we get to actually discuss each of these items? Because it's referencing that these ought to pass by the board, and we've not discussed all of them.
Can I?
Did you see this?
By all means.
Okay. So the way we put together the warrant, is, much of it is, text, like what we call the housekeeping items at the end, or text that we've used in prior years. Sometimes we tweak it a little. We always put the budget in there, and then frequently there'll be things from the planning department that the planning board has gone through and asked for zoning code changes or code changes. This year, I don't think we have any code changes besides the planning board one, but, so those are there. We start it as a Word document, and then it gets transferred into a format that Charlie Crosby can use. And a lot of times there's difficulties going back and forth and takes a long time to get it right. So as we did the draft, we have on there ought to pass, because that's usually how it ends up. Obviously, you haven't taken that vote yet. Usually you do that at the public hearing after you hear the public comment and you make your own comments. You go through each article, you decide what your recommendation is. If you don't like that recommendation, we can certainly change whatever it is after the 18th. And if the purpose of tonight isn't to discuss the details of the warrant, because we have to notice it and let people have a chance to come in and be heard. But it's certainly within your rights to decide you don't want something to be on the warrant. So if you have something tonight you just want us to leave off, and that, because in essence, this is what the administration's draft right now, because you haven't adopted it yet.
So wouldn't the warrant normally come from the select board?
Right.
And so it's being given to us by the town manager and the assistant manager to approve. We might want something else on there that we haven't really discussed this. So I don't understand why we don't have this as an agenda item to discuss at a future meeting where the public could come. Do we wait and do it just at that town meeting? This is my first go through, so I'm asking
It's not a
questions.
town meeting though, it's a public hearing.
It's just the public hearing. So that's the point where we only discuss it for the first time in front of everybody. That's just how it works.
Well, technically speaking, we have, all the meetings we've had so far, all the budget meetings have been open to the public. And we've been able to run through, at least for the two that I was able to go to, we've run through most of the items and there haven't been any considerable blocking by the board, to my knowledge anyway. So I think what Mark is trying to explain is just in the interest of time and getting this out in an appropriate fashion to the public, the ought to pass is there, so that Charlie can make an accurate entry into the crier, for distribution to the public. But if there is something that comes up in April, or excuse me, it is April, at the next meeting, excuse me, on April 18th, at the public hearing, we're able to completely change that. So I think there's been one level of review by us already, one level of review by the finance committee. This next meeting is a second level of review where we're able to make changes ourselves, but also based on comments that the public might provide. And then we can vote based on those comments. So it's sort of like a second level. And then the third level is obviously town meeting.
So then if I have questions that I want answered prior to that meeting, then I would just write to you and you get those for me. For example, it says we're going to transfer current balances of existing accounts into the corresponding reserve account. You know, are all of those numbers in the budget specifically?
No, so the housekeeping ones give you the power to do it, doesn't mean you have to do it. So later on, Kathy will come back probably sometime in June and say, we've got this amount of money left in this account, would like to put it in this account.
Okay,
So, but if we didn't have town meeting give you these powers, we wouldn't be able to do that without having another town meeting.
understood.
So the last, however many articles, I think it's 10 or so, those basically give you the authority to do things throughout the year that without those would have to go to town meeting. Like, there's another one that says you can accept easements. So if we have a developer that, planning board wants them to give us a drainage easement for a retention pond or something that actually happened with Market Basket last year. There was easements that the town wanted to get, as well as, there's some group left agreements, but you have that power anyway. So that was something, if we hadn't had this language in the warrant, we would have had a special meeting for that Market Basket to accept the easements. So these ones at the end give you authority to do things, but they don't actually do it. But if we didn't have it, we'd have to have special town meetings to accomplish these things later. But
It's something that's come up a lot, like there's one in there about accepting donations on behalf of the town or something like that. And people at town meeting, well, what are you doing? You taking this money, blah, blah, blah. But it's really just in case someone wants to donate money to the town, we can't do it without permission from the citizen legislature. So this is our opportunity to get these things blanket covered. So as Mark said, we don't have to go back to a meeting, because like, it took me a while to get used to this too. It's like, select board, we don't have a lot of power. We really don't, throughout the year. I mean, our job is to basically make sure that the town sticks to the budget. And that's, if something crazy comes up, like a pandemic, then we react appropriately. But all of our power, if you want to call it that, is derived from this meeting where the people of town vote to give us that power. So typically Ed Karen will stand up at the end of the meeting and say, I move to approve, the last 10 items, because it's template boilerplate stuff. Really just typical functions of what the select board does throughout the year that we take for granted. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So maybe to answer the rest of your question, we prepared this, or staff prepares it, I think, to lessen the burden on the select board, as opposed to in some small towns, could be the select board actually puts this document together themselves. But at least we can certainly change it in the future, but the past habit here has been the staff puts together a draft warrant based on either instructions from the select board earlier in the year or things that come up in the budget process. Sometimes people might want to get something on the warrant. The way they could get it on the warrant is either they need to get you guys to authorize it. Trying to think, we had someone a few weeks ago, they wanted a charitable donation for a charity, because it's something like Heart Soul sometimes gives money out to things. And they said, how would I get that on your warrant? And it says, you either need to come to our select board and ask them to put it on the warrant, or I think the number's around 580 signatures. It's based on a percentage of the voters at the last gubernatorial election. But you'd have to go out and collect 580 signatures of Topsham residents and then bring that forward. So the warrant is what the administration puts together. The warrant is things that come up throughout the year. They either maybe the planning board's asked for a zone change, which you could decide on your own. You don't want to make that zoning change, but if you want to go along with it, they always have to, it has to either start with them or you send it to them to review. They have to have at least reviewed it and made a recommendation. Then it comes to you folks to include the warrant if you choose. Maybe there's some other ordinance would want to change. So that would, something else maybe would present to staff to you to ask to put on the warrant. Or maybe during the course of the year, you come up with something you'd like to change that needs to go to town meeting. So you could say to staff, can you include this in the warrant? So there's certainly, it'd be hard to, we could add things Thursday night, but certainly after the next Thursday night. But after next Thursday night, we're not going to meet our publishing deadlines and stuff if we added things beyond that. So if someone comes to us first week in May, says, I want to add this to your town meeting, it's going to be too late. Doesn't mean we can't have another special town meeting later.
So when I saw the paperwork here for the planning to what they want to do in terms of, boundaries and setbacks and all of that, this is the first I'm seeing of it. I don't want to put the planning board on defensive and not having this discussion at this public meeting. I was surprised we didn't get this in advance. Like, I have a question, and this, I'll just say it, but it's not a huge question. In one line, they say for any non-residential use, frontage must be increased by 25 feet. That's number 24. That's a footnote. And then there's another one that says for any non-residential use, the rear setback is increased to 50 feet. So by saying it's increased by 25, well, what's the finish number? Why are we using it's increased by 25? Why didn't we say, well, the total 75 or the total's 50? Why are we leaving it so vague would be one of my questions. And then it also says that the setback on 196 I-295 in number 11 is what, 75 feet somewhere? And so what about people who own property? They can't touch their property. I was talking before about how some people can't, they have to leave vegetation or whatever in the land. And so is that something we want to blanketly do and force people to do that? I don't know. I mean, if you want them to stay 75 feet away from the road, that's one thing. But if they want to improve that property, they can't cut down trees and improve the property with shrubs or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure that I would want to vote for that.
So to answer the first part, The reason why they didn't use a hard number is because the setbacks are different in different zones.
Oh,
So
so go to the zone chart,
Yeah.
for example.
and see which ones the footnote applies to.
So the setback is 20, and so that's gonna be 45, and the 25 will be 50, and the 75 will be 100? Okay, that
So
makes sense.
that's good. As far as the other stuff, if you like, I can certainly get you on the mailing list that lets, people know when the planning board's meetings are up and what the agenda is.
Well, I can get it offline.
So that's where all this was being discussed in the public, because they're, so to speak, kind of our experts.
Right, but generally what happens is the department committees and the department that come and present to us.
And that night, once you set the hearing, we're gonna have representatives of the planning.
So they'll be doing it that night. Okay. Got it. Thank you. I appreciate the input because this is the first time I've been through this process. And it just seemed like, why would we not have more discussion about what's on the agenda prior to the night of the event? So.
And some of it is,
No, I'm just.
Oh, he's checking
Like,
motion detected.
Yeah.
right.
some of it's just the freedom of information stuff that we need to notice and give the public a chance to participate, so that they can also weigh in on stuff.
Yeah, I think Mark's point about, the planning board typically are the experts in these types of matters, and they have, what, 2 different meetings related to changes like this, or possibly even more.
Yeah.
When they're making changes, and those are all to the public. And they are attended, by several regularly as well. But that's sort of where the sausage is made, and then when it comes to us, it's typically been almost fully baked, by them. And then if there are questions, I think we had the chair come in one year about something.
And sometimes the chair speaks at town meeting too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, right,
And the
yeah.
planning director speaks for sure.
Because they'll sort of talk about the decision-making process, what went into it, what types of comments they received. Because typically we aren't there. There's a lot of things that happen here that we either don't have time to go to or just don't care to go to.
Well, I'm just, from a personal perspective, I own property on Route 295, it wouldn't be impacted by this vote. But I wouldn't want people telling me I couldn't use 75 feet of my land because they made some decision in a meeting. And I'm thinking, from my perspective, anybody who owns land in Topsham, we're making a decision that's gonna impact the use of their land. Which, do we really wanna do that? I mean, should we not be more specific to specific properties as opposed to just blanketly saying, if you have property on 295 or 196 or 201, then you've got to set back 75 feet, whether you like it or not. So that's how I see it. I'm supposed to be representing the town of Topsham and not myself, but that was just an example of something that would be of interest to me. For example, on that land in Bowden.
The meetings, you stupid old bitch.
What?
I don't think she's up.
You're not muted, Patty.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
And actually,
That was great. Thank you, Patty. That was the best entertainment I could have ever asked for.
We loved it, thank you. In light of all, go ahead.
I was saying, setbacks are pretty common in zoning codes.
You're right.
The distances vary depending on the zone, like there'll be some places downtown that might have no setbacks and things. But that's certainly something that, can be asked in the public hearing, get an answer.
Well, after all of this discussion, thank you so much. I guess I would like to make a motion that we set the public hearing on the town warrants on April 18th, 2024 at a special town meeting to prepare for the May 22nd meeting. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. All right. I believe 24-28 enter into executive session for MRSA 6A to discuss personnel matters.
I make a motion that we move into executive session.
Agree. All right, all in favor? Unanimous. All right, we are now.
I'll put the time too.
Roger that. We're now in executive session.
Good night, Patty.
Hey, good night.